The great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with quiet whispers. Hundreds of alien species sat in their high seats, glowing eyes and strange forms gathered under the silver lights. The meeting was not planned, but an emergency had been called. Something had appeared in the dark edge of the galaxy, something that none of their sensors could explain. A pale light flickered across the main display, showing the image of a forgotten sector, cold and silent for thousands of years. One of the watchers, a tall creature with crystal skin, spoke in a nervous tone. He said that an ancient energy signal had been detected there, pulsing with a rhythm like a heartbeat. At first, they thought it was a glitch, but then the signal changed. It carried a message, short and old. In a language the machine struggled to translate. The council leader, a being with 6 silver eyes, commanded the display to decode the message. Slowly words appeared on the screen. They were rough and harsh, not from any known species of the council. The translation flashed across the chamber, awakening. Fleet Earth. Silence filled the room. Many had heard the name Earth only in ancient records, a name connected to a dangerous species called Deathworlders. They were said to come from the harshest world ever known, a place full of storms, beasts, and endless wars, a race so stubborn that no threat could break them. The council had fought them long ago, and it was believed that they were gone forever, lost in fire and ruin. But now, something was stirring again. A new image appeared on the display. It showed massive shapes hidden under layers of ice and stone on a dead world. The ground trembled as one of those shapes began to move. A great metallic hand broke through the surface, followed by a tower of dark steel and glowing red lights. One after another, more shapes rose from the frozen land giant ships, old but alive. Their engines humming like beasts waking from a long sleep. A cold shiver ran through every member of the council. The signal was growing stronger. Power readings reached levels not seen since the Great War. One counselor whispered that these were warships, Predator class, designed for destruction. Another said that if the Deathworlders were truly returning, no army in the galaxy could stop them. The leader demanded all data from the archives. Ancient holograms appeared, showing the final battles between the Council and the Deathworlders. The images showed human ships diving through fire, refusing to retreat, fighting until the last. Even when their worlds burned, they never surrendered. It took the united fleets of 20 civilizations to finally break them. But even then, no one had found the final fleet. Some believed it had been destroyed. Others said it had gone into hiding. Now it seemed the truth was rising again from the shadows. A council scientist stood up, voice shaking. He said the signal carried not just words, but a pattern coordinates. A network of hidden colonies, all connected by the same ancient code. He said the awakening might not be an accident. It might be a response. Something must have triggered it. Maybe a threat. Maybe a call. Or maybe, after all this time, the humans had chosen to return. The leader asked what could be done. A debate began, filled with fear. Some said they must send a fleet to destroy the awakening ships before it was too late. Others argued that it was already too late. If the Deathworlders had survived, they would not be easy to defeat again. One old member, his voice thin and dry, said that when they fought humans before, they learned one thing. They only become stronger after every loss. The room darkened as the display shifted again. A new signal had arrived, stronger and clearer than before. The voice was cold, mechanical, and heavy with meaning. It spoke in a language that needed no translation. We remember. The chamber froze. Lights flickered. The signal repeated, "We remember. We return." Then the display went black. A slow dread filled every mind. The council leader felt the weight of history pressing down. They had believed the humans gone, their power broken. But they were wrong. The Deathworlders had not died. They had waited, and now their fleet was awakening. One counselor whispered that maybe they should try to speak, to negotiate, but another said it was useless. The Deathworlders did not forget betrayal, and if they remembered, it meant they also remembered the war in the shadows of the chamber. A young strategist turned his eyes toward the map of the galaxy. He saw the pattern of the signals spreading, forming a web across the stars. It was like a storm forming on the horizon. He whispered quietly to himself that the galaxy was about to change forever, far away. In the frozen silence of the outer rim, a great ship fully rose from the ice. Its hull was black and scarred, its name burned but still visible. Eternal Resolve. Its engines glowed red like eyes opening. Inside, ancient systems came alive, lights flickering through long abandoned corridors. Deep in the command chamber, machines hummed, and a voice spoke for the first time in centuries. Fleet awakening sequence complete. One by one, across the dark sector, more ships answered the call. Their power filled the void like thunder. The stars seemed to tremble as the Predator fleet prepared to rise again. Back in the Council, fear turned into silence. Every member knew what this meant. They were not witnessing the birth of a new threat. They were witnessing the return of an old one, a power forged in pain, sharpened by war. And driven by memory, the leader rose from his seat and said quietly that the galaxy had entered a new age. The Deathworlders were awake, and nothing would ever be the same again. Somewhere, deep in the dark, a human voice echoed through the void, soft but filled with fury. Humanity remembers. The signal ended, leaving only silence and the beginning of a storm that would shake the stars. The council chamber was silent, but every mind inside was filled with fear. The message still echoed in their thoughts. We remember. We return. Those words carried the weight of something old, something powerful, something no one wanted to face again. Across the galaxy, the signal spread, waking memories that many had tried to forget. The Deathworlders, humanity. They were alive. A meeting was called again, this time behind closed doors. Only the highest members of the Galactic Council were allowed inside. They sat in a circle under dim lights, staring at the holographic image of the frozen world where the fleet had begun to awaken. The ships now floated above the surface, forming perfect formation lines. Their engines burned like red stars, silent but full of deadly promise. An elder counselor, his voice shaking, began to speak. He said he had fought in the last war against humanity. He remembered their ships fast, fearless, and full of weapons no one had seen before. He said the humans never surrendered, even when surrounded. They fought like predators, not prey. And when defeat came, they vanished into the dark, leaving behind a warning, "We will rise again."
Ow.
That promise was returning. The Council scientists presented old data recovered from restricted archives. They explained who the Deathworlders truly were. Humanity had been born on a planet full of death, storms, quakes, poisons, beasts, and endless wars. Yet they had survived. They had thrived. They had learned to fight against anything, even the galaxy itself. To them, every world was just another challenge. Every enemy, another lesson. A young strategist asked how it was possible that they still lived. The answer was cold and simple. The humans had scattered. Before their homeworld fell, they had launched colony fleets into the void. Some were found and destroyed, but others were never seen again. The Council had assumed they were lost, but perhaps, all along, they had been waiting, building, growing, hiding among the stars. The data showed strange patterns. Hidden colonies using encrypted signals, silent planets showing signs of old human technology, secret stations built in forgotten systems. The truth began to form. Humanity never died. It adapted. It rebuilt. And now, the awakening fleet was calling them back. One member suggested sending ambassadors a peace message, a chance to speak before war began again. But the elder shook his head. He said humans didn't trust words anymore. The last time they trusted the Council, their world was burned. The Council had betrayed them to end the war, and humans never forget betrayal. Still, the Council needed to know what they faced. So they sent stealth probes, small, fast, and invisible, to approach the awakening fleet. Hours passed. Then one probe sent back a short transmission. A blurred image appeared on the screen, a massive warship surrounded by thousands more. Then the signal cut. The probe was gone. Destroyed instantly. A single message came back in return. The same 3 words. We remember, we return. Fear spread like fire through the chamber. The leader ordered full military readiness. But deep down, everyone knew no fleet could match the power waking in the outer rim. The Deathworlders had not only survived, they had grown stronger, colder, and more united in a hidden section of the galaxy. On a dead world filled with ruins, something ancient stirred. Beneath layers of dust and stone, a great hall lit up for the first time in centuries. Rows of cryopods hissed open. Inside them were humans, soldiers, engineers, commanders, their eyes opened slowly, glowing with purpose. They looked around at their ship, now fully alive again, systems humming, weapons ready. One of them stepped forward, wearing the uniform of a fleet commander. His face was scarred, his expression calm. He looked out at the stars through the main viewport and whispered, "So, they remembered us after all." He turned to the control panel, activating the fleet network. Dozens of human voices answered back, one after another. Reports came from hidden stations, from silent colonies, from forgotten ships waiting in the dark. Humanity had been scattered, but never broken. The signal had reached them all. The fleet was gathering. Back at the council, arguments grew louder. Some demanded an attack before the Deathworlders became unstoppable. Others said it would be suicide. A few believed humanity might want peace, but no one could be sure. The leader finally spoke, his voice heavy. "We made a mistake long ago," he said. "We believed the Deathworlders were monsters, but they were survivors. And now they are coming back. We must decide, do we face them as enemies, or kneel before them as rulers?" The chamber fell silent again. No one had an answer. Far across the stars, deep within the awakened flagship, the commander gave his first order. "Signal all hidden colonies. Begin return protocol. Reunite the fleet." One by one, ancient ships turned toward the center of the galaxy. Their engines flared, breaking the silence of ages. In the void, the voice of humanity whispered through the stars, not of vengeance, but of remembrance. The Deathworlders were coming home. And the galaxy would soon learn why the council had trembled. The stars burned quietly over the dark edge of the galaxy. But the silence carried a warning. Something ancient had awakened, and the council could feel it. Every hour, new reports arrived, ships seen moving through dead systems, strange energy signatures rising from hidden worlds, and whispers from traders who claimed to have seen shadows passing through the void. The Deathworlders were not hiding anymore. They were moving. Inside the council chamber, fear had turned into panic. The leaders gathered again, their faces grim. The intercepted message still echoed in their archives, "We remember. We return." It was not a threat spoken in anger. It was a promise spoken in truth. A team of intelligence officers stood before the council, presenting their latest findings. They showed holograms of destroyed probes, ships that vanished without a trace, and energy readings from the awakening fleet. The readings were beyond anything the council fleets could match. Old war records showed that even when humanity was weaker, they had been nearly unstoppable. Now, with centuries of silence behind them, no one knew what power they carried. One counselor demanded immediate action. "We must strike before they gather strength," he shouted. But another voice rose in reply. "Strike with what? Our fleets can't even get close. Every probe is destroyed before it reaches their ships." Scientists stepped forward, voice trembling. She explained that the Deathworlder technology had evolved. Their ships were layered with energy fields unknown to current science. Their weapons were invisible to scanners. And the most terrifying discovery ship appeared to carry its own AI command core, fully self-aware and networked, reacting faster than any living pilot. The council chamber grew colder. Then a new alert flashed across the main display. One of the listening stations on the rim had gone silent. Moments later, a brief transmission broke through static, then a voice filled with terror. "They found us. They're here." The signal ended abruptly. The council realized the Deathworlders were no longer just awakening. They were watching. Across the void, aboard the flagship Eternal Resolve, the human commander stood on the bridge, watching the stars. The ship's AI spoke softly beside him. Observation probes destroyed. Council forces attempting surveillance. Orders, he replied with calm certainty. No open war yet. Let them see enough to remember who we are. Around him, officers worked silently. Maps displayed old war routes, showing planets where the Council had once burned human colonies. Each mark on the map was a wound. Each wound was remembered. The commander knew that the Council feared them. He also knew fear was the first step to understanding. He turned to his second officer. Have the message ready. Across the galaxy, communication networks flickered. The same transmission reached every major Council world at once. A simple voice spoke in perfect clarity. You tried to erase us. You buried us under ice and silence. But you cannot kill memory. We are the children of Earth. We remember. We return. No demand, no threat. Just truth. The message ended, but its echo shook the hearts of all who heard it. On dozens of worlds, civilians gathered around public screens, asking who the Deathworlders were. Some called them heroes. Others called them monsters. The galaxy had forgotten their history, but the humans had not. In a private chamber, the council leader met with the military high command. Plans were drawn, alliances called, weapons prepared. Yet every simulation ended the same way, total defeat. No matter the numbers, no matter the tactics. The Deathworlders always won. One general whispered, they fight like storms. You can't outthink a storm. Meanwhile, on the Eternal Resolve, preparations continued. Hidden colonies began sending ships old but powerful, each one answering the call. The Predator fleet was gathering. Every ship carried the same emblem. A broken chain wrapped around a burning world. It was a symbol of survival, not conquest. The commander watched as the fleet count grew. He knew the time was coming when they would face the council again. But this time, they would not kneel. Back in the council, arguments turned to fear. Some worlds began to break away, trying to distance themselves from the ancient betrayal. Others demanded peace at any cost. The leader knew the truth: no peace could be made with ghosts from the past until the truth was spoken. Night after night, ports came in. Human ships moving through old war zones, scanning the ruins of worlds the council had destroyed long ago. It was as if they were counting the dead, remembering every loss. And then the final sign came. A massive energy surge in deep space. Thousands of ships aligning in perfect formation. A message followed. Coordinates sent to the Council's central system. The humans were calling them. The meaning was clear. A meeting. Or a warning. The Council leader stared at the coordinates, his hand shaking. It was the same place where the final battle had taken place centuries ago. The graveyard of the old war, he whispered quietly. They're not hiding anymore. They want us to see. Across the stars, the Deathworlder fleet turned slowly, engines burning bright. The storm was no longer far away. It was coming, and every world in the galaxy could feel it. The humans were awake, and they were moving far beyond the edge of known space. The flagship Eternal Resolve floated among the stars like a dark giant awakening from a long sleep. Inside its cold metal corridors, the heartbeat of the ship pulsed steady and strong. Systems that had slept for centuries now glowed with new life. Across the network, signals traveled through the fleet. One by one, every ship answered the call. Humanity was gathering once more in the command chamber. The Deathworlder commander stood in silence, watching the stars beyond the viewport. His uniform was worn, but proud. A relic from an age when humanity still fought for survival against a galaxy that feared and hated them. The memories of those days had never left him. The betrayals, the burning of Earth, the cries of his people as the Council turned their weapons on the very race they had once sworn to protect. He closed his eyes and spoke softly to the AI that stood beside him, its voice calm and ancient. Status of the fleet. All vessels operational, the AI replied. 73 warships fully awakened, Reinforcements arriving from hidden colonies. Armament levels maximum. Power output stable. And the colonies? Signals confirmed. Humanity has answered. They are ready to return. The commander nodded slowly. Then it begins. We rise, not for revenge, but for remembrance. The fleet's main display lit up, showing old battle maps, the scars of a war long past. Red marks showed where human worlds had once existed, each one now silent or turned to ash. At the center of it all lay the world called Earth. Nothing more than dust now, destroyed by the Council's final strike. The commander stared at the hollow image for a long moment, his voice quiet but filled with fire. They thought destroying our home would destroy us. They never understood what we are. We were born from struggle. We were shaped by death. And now we return to show them what they created. Across the fleet, crews awakened from cryosleep. Men and women stepped into corridors filled with dim light, their faces calm but resolute. They carried no hatred in their eyes, only purpose. Each of them knew why they had been called. The signal was more than a command. It was a promise made long ago. Humanity had been betrayed, broken, and scattered. But now they were united again. On one of the colony ships, a young officer spoke softly to her captain. "Do you think they'll fight us again?" The captain replied, "They will try, but they've forgotten who we are. They've forgotten what it means to be Deathworlders." Meanwhile, within the Council's grand hall, the leaders watched the growing fleet on their displays. The images sent chills through the chamber, massive warships built for destruction, moving in perfect silence. The Council's fleets, though many, seemed small in comparison. Panic whispered through the ranks. Some demanded a strike. Others begged for negotiation. But all agreed on one truth. The Deathworlders had become something beyond comprehension. The Council's military chief slammed a hand on the table. "If they come for us, nothing will stop them. We need to prepare defenses now." But the elder among them shook his head. "You cannot build walls strong enough to hold back a storm. We taught them to fight, and they learned too well." Then a transmission arrived, clear, direct, and without threat. The voice was calm, deep, unmistakably human. "We do not seek conquest. We do not seek vengeance. We seek truth. The Council must answer for the fire it unleashed. You buried our world in ashes and called it peace. Now we rise to remind you the Deathworlders endure." The message ended. Leaving the chamber in stunned silence, some among the Council began to whisper that maybe, just maybe, the humans had not returned for war. But others knew better. Even if the Deathworlders did not wish to destroy, their presence alone was power, enough to shake every empire to its core. Back aboard the Eternal Resolve, the commander stood before his crew. His voice carried across the decks, broadcast to every ship in the fleet. "Once, they feared us because we would not bow. They feared our strength, our will, our unity. They thought they could erase us. But we are not a memory. We are not ghosts. We are the children of Earth, forged in storms, tempered in war, unbroken by time. Today, we rise, not to destroy, but to remind the galaxy what it means to be human." The crew saluted, eyes filled with quiet pride. Engines roared across the fleet, glowing like suns in the void. Ships formed a massive formation, each one taking its place in a perfect circle. The flagship stood at the center, leading the armada forward. In the dark, the Deathworlder fleet began to move, not as conquerors, but as a force of destiny. Wherever they passed, sensors across the stars trembled. Fleets of lesser worlds withdrew in silence, unwilling to face them. The Council watched in fear and awe. They had believed themselves rulers of the stars. But now they understood the truth. They had only been caretakers of a galaxy that belonged to those strong enough to survive it. And none had ever survived like humanity. As the fleet entered the inner sectors, a quiet transmission reached the Council's central world. Just for words spoken in a calm human voice, "We are coming home." The Council leader lowered his eyes. He knew the truth now. This was not a return of war. It was the return of judgment, and across the stars the Deathworlders flew onward, carrying with them the memory of a world long lost and a promise that could not be broken. The galaxy would soon remember why the Council had once trembled. The Council had never felt such fear. Reports came in faster than they could process, entire sectors reporting missing communications, mysterious energy surges in remote systems, and eyewitness accounts of massive ships moving through the void without warning. The Deathworlder fleet was no longer hidden. It was alive, coordinated, and unstoppable. Inside the Grand Chamber, leaders argued fiercely. Some called for diplomacy, hoping words could calm the humans who had once been nearly extinct. Others demanded immediate strikes, fleets launched at full power to intercept the approaching armada. But every military simulation ended the same way: total defeat. Every tactic failed. Every fleet was shredded or driven back before even reaching the human ships. A young counselor whispered, voice shaking, "They are not just back. They have evolved." The elder nodded grimly. "You do not fight what you cannot understand. Humanity is no longer the same species we defeated centuries ago. They have learned. They have grown. They remember every betrayal, every loss, every wound we inflicted." Outside the chamber, alarms blared across the Council's space stations. Sensors tracked hundreds of human ships forming precise formations. Each movement was coordinated with mechanical perfection, as though the fleet were a single living entity. The Predator-class ships led the armada, massive and black, their engines glowing red against the darkness of space. In one of the observation rooms, a strategist stared at the displays, his hands trembling. "Look at their formation. Every ship is perfectly aligned. Every path calculated. They're not attacking yet. They're showing strength." A communication console lit up suddenly. A message appeared from a scout fleet stationed near a cluster of outer planets. The words were simple but chilling. "They found our forward stations. All lost. Retreat impossible." Panic spread across the Council worlds. Evacuations began in neighboring systems. Entire colonies fled as the Deathworlder fleet drew closer. Some planetary governors pleaded for mercy, while others prepared for the inevitable clash. The Council tried to coordinate its fleets, but every command seemed slow. Outdated, insufficient. Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim, aboard the flagship Eternal Resolve, the commander watched the galaxy unfold through the viewport. The crew moved with quiet efficiency. Every hidden colony that had answered the signal now formed the fleet's backbone. Ancient weapons hummed with power. Long-dormant AI systems calculated every possible outcome of war. And yet the commander did not strike. He turned to his second officer. "Let them see. Let them understand what they created. We are not here to destroy it. We are here to remind." The officer nodded, understanding the weight of the command. Every ship in the fleet responded, sensors active, weapons ready, engines burning, yet no attack was launched. It was a show of power, a warning wrapped in patience. Back at the Council, military leaders analyzed the threat. "If they attack now," one general said, "they could wipe out every fleet we send. We have no chance." The chamber grew tense, voices overlapping with fear and desperation. They realized that this was no ordinary enemy returning. Humanity was something beyond their calculations, beyond their control. A lone ambassador from a distant world spoke quietly, "Perhaps this is not war they seek. Perhaps they want us to see, to understand." But understanding brought no comfort. The fleet's slow advance across the systems was like a predator circling its prey, showing dominance without immediate violence. Every council member knew the truth. The Deathworlders remembered. And now the galaxy would remember as well. On the flagship, the commander activated the communication network, sending one simple message across all channels that reached the council world simultaneously. "We gave mercy once. We will give it no longer. Join us, or step aside. Humanity remembers." The words echoed through every station, every council chamber, every colony. Panic turned into disbelief. No one had expected such directness, such clarity. The humans were no longer weak, scattered survivors. They were a united force, precise, deliberate, and unstoppable. The Council tried to respond to formulate a plan, but the weight of history bore down on them. They had thought the Deathworlders were gone. They had thought the humans were broken. They had been wrong. The fleet continued its slow, deliberate approach, engines flaring like distant suns. Systems trembled at the sight. Worlds emptied in anticipation. And through it all, one truth became undeniable. The Council's fear was justified. The Deathworlders were here, fully awake, and the galaxy had no choice but to witness it. A single message remained on the Council's central display, repeated endlessly. We remember. We return, humanity's fury will be seen. And in that moment, the Council realized that no plea, no fleet, no treaty could stop what was coming. The galaxy was on the edge of a storm, and the Deathworlders were its herald. The first clash came without warning. The Council had scrambled its fleets, sending dozens of warships to intercept the approaching Deathworlder armada. Across the void, energy beams lit the darkness, and missiles streaked like fire, but they were no match. Every attack was anticipated, every strike countered with precision. The humans fought not like individuals, but as a single entity, their ships moving in perfect coordination. On board the Eternal Resolve, the commander watched silently. The bridge glowed with red alerts as enemy ships fired in desperation. The fleet's formation shifted seamlessly, adjusting to every threat before it even reached them. A young officer whispered, "It's like they can see everything before it happens." The commander nodded, calm as ever. They are not guessing. They are remembering. Every battle, every tactic from the past, it has been recorded. We learn, we adapt, and we endure. The Council's forces tried to regroup. One general shouted over the alarms, "Focus on the flagships! Take them out, and the fleet will crumble." But before the orders could be executed, the Deathworlders moved as one. Predatory ships closed in on the targets, disabling entire squadrons in moments. Beams of energy sliced through hulls, tearing ships apart with frightening efficiency. Reports from across the battlefield were horrifying. Entire fleets vanished in seconds. Council World sensors recorded the Predator-class ships striking like storms fast, calculated, unstoppable. Communications came in broken fragments. Retreat. Impossible. They know our moves. In one Council warship, a captain stared at the viewscreen in disbelief. There, coordinating. They don't even need to speak. It's like the fleet itself is alive. Meanwhile, the Deathworlder flagship remained at the center, commanding the flow of battle with cold precision. Every order was executed instantly. Every ship was where it needed to be. And yet, they struck only what was necessary, taking no unnecessary risks. Humanity's fury was not reckless. It was controlled, measured, and terrifying. On the battlefield, a small Council squadron tried a flanking maneuver, hoping to surprise the Predators. Moments later, they were surrounded, their engines disabled by precise energy pulses. No one survived to report what happened. Back on the Eternal Resolve, the commander observed quietly. "They expected us to be weak," he said softly. "They thought centuries of absence made us fragile. They were wrong. We have returned stronger, faster, smarter, and we will not forget." The young officer looked at him, eyes wide. Do we destroy them all?" The commander shook his head. "Not yet. Let them see our strength first. Let them understand that humanity is not to be underestimated. The Council must learn that fear is the cost of betrayal." In the Council chamber, reports came in from all directions. Worlds were under threat, fleets were destroyed, and entire sectors had gone dark. Panic spread faster than the human ships. Some leaders demanded surrender, others begged for negotiation. But the images on their screens left no doubt. The humans had evolved beyond their comprehension. One scientist, voice trembling, whispered, "They've not only returned, they've perfected war. Every move we anticipated, every weakness we thought we had, they knew it." The commander issued one final order. Across the fleet, every ship held its position but focused its sensors on the Council worlds. Communications channels opened, a single message transmitted to all listening posts. We are not your enemy. Yet, we are humanity. We remember. You will see our fury, and you will know why the galaxy once feared us. Silence followed. The Council could only watch, powerless, as the Deathworlder fleet continued its relentless advance. The first strike was over, and the result was undeniable. The humans were back, and they were unstoppable. Every surviving Council fleet withdrew, beaten, humiliated, and terrified. Across the stars, whispers spread. They are not just back. They are evolved. They are humanity reborn. The commander watched the stars in front of him, a calm fury in his eyes. The galaxy has forgotten who we are, he said quietly. It is time they remembered. And as the fleet moved forward, engines glowing like 1,000 suns, the first true war of this new age had begun. Humanity's fury had been unleashed. The Council had gathered once more, but this time there was no plan, no hope, only dread. Across every system, their fleets were in retreat or destroyed. Worlds that had once been confident now trembled at the sight of the Deathworlder fleet advancing. Every planet, every colony, felt the weight of the inevitable. Humanity had returned, and they were no longer the species they remembered. On the bridge of the eternal resolve, the commander stood silently, surveying the galaxy before him. His fleet moved with deliberate precision, engines flaring as they passed through star systems that had once turned their backs on Earth. The human ships were no longer hidden. No longer scattered, they were whole, united, and unstoppable. A young officer approached. "Sir, the Council. They're pleading for negotiation. They want to surrender." The commander shook his head. "Surrender is meaningless now. They need to understand." He activated the fleet-wide communication network. Across the void, every Council world, every listening post, and every colony heard the voice of humanity not as a threat, but as truth. We are the children of Earth. You tried to erase us. You buried our worlds, destroyed our homes, and called it victory. But we endured. We remembered. And now we return not to destroy, but to remind you of who we are. The words echoed through the galaxy, reverberating in the hearts of those who had once considered humanity weak. It was not fear alone that spread, it was awe. The Council watched helplessly as their fleets withdrew, unable to challenge the power now streaming toward them. Humanity was not just back. It was dominant. On one of the outer worlds, a governor whispered to his advisors, "We are witnessing history, and we are powerless." The commander turned to his officers. "We will not destroy unless necessary, but we will make them see. They must remember the cost of underestimating us." As the fleet passed through the intersectors, signals went out to all hidden colonies. Ships rose from secret hangars, joining the armada in perfect formation. Every vessel carried with it centuries of survival, experience, and memory. Humanity had returned, not as fugitives, not as survivors, but as a force of destiny. The Council tried to respond, tried to negotiate, but every attempt failed. Humanity did not wait for answers. They moved with purpose, each action deliberate, each message calculated. Across the stars, one message repeated again and again: join us, or step aside. Humanity remembers. Some worlds submitted, pledging loyalty to the human fleet. Others remained defiant, but few dared to resist openly. The message was clear. The galaxy had changed, and the Council had no control. Back on the eternal resolve, the commander watched the stars. His fleet had become more than just ships. It was a symbol. A reminder that humanity, though long thought extinct, had endured and evolved. Every star they passed, every world they touched, carried the truth. Betrayal could not destroy them. Silence and patience had made them stronger. The Council leader finally understood the enormity of what had occurred. The tremble he had felt when the first signal arrived was nothing compared to this, the realization that the humans were no longer the species. They had known. They were predators of the stars, tempered in fire, sharpened by betrayal, united by memory. The commander's voice echoed through the fleet one final time. The galaxy will remember today. Not because we sought war, but because we endured. We are humanity. We remember. We return. Engines flared, ships formed perfect lines, and the fleet moved onward. The stars themselves seemed to bend before their passage. Across the council worlds, fear and awe mingled in equal measure. The day the council had trembled was no longer a warning, it was reality. Humanity's fury had been unleashed, and the galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere, the deep void between worlds, the last whisper of the old council echoed across space. We underestimated them. We always underestimated them. The humans were home. The galaxy had been reminded. The storm had arrived, and it carried the fury of a species that refused to die. The era of humanity had begun.